Once upon a time, in the prosperous kingdom of Arvandor, a celebration echoed through every street, marketplace, and palace hall. Trumpets rang out across the hills, signaling the birth of a long-awaited princess. King Edric and Queen Celine, after years of hope and prayer, finally welcomed a child into the royal cradle. She was given the name Princess Elara, and from the moment her cries first touched the air, the kingdom rejoiced as if the heavens themselves had blessed them. But in the shadows beyond the palace walls, not everyone shared this joy. In a small hut at the farthest edge of the city, another baby girl had been born on the very same night. Her mother, a midwife named Marin, lived in poverty and isolation. This child, named Lyanna, bore the same striking features as the royal infant: raven black hair, pale skin like moonlight, and eyes that sparkled with emerald green. Villagers who saw her whispered in awe that she looked fit to be a princess, though they meant it only as a passing remark. Fate, however, had sharper plans. One of the queen's trusted attendants, Lady Brienne, carried a secret envy in her heart. She despised Celine for her kindness and the power she wielded in court. When she saw the two infants, one bathed in silks, the other in rags, an idea darker than night itself took root in her mind. Under the cover of a stormy evening, while the palace slumbered in peace, Lady Brienne crept into the royal nursery. With careful hands, she swapped Princess Elara with Lyanna, placing the midwife's child in the cradle of gold and carrying the true princess into obscurity. By dawn, the deed was complete. No one suspected treachery. The palace heralds announced the health of the royal child, and nobles from distant lands sent gifts to honor the newborn heir. The kingdom believed Lyanna was their princess, while the true Elara lay wrapped in coarse blada, enkits, inside a humble hut. Marin, the midwife, awoke to the sight of a golden bracelet engraved with the royal crest lying beside her infant. Confusion gripped her heart, but when she realized the truth, fear silenced her tongue. To reveal the switch would mean challenging the throne, and she feared for her child's life. So she raised Elara as her own, never speaking of the secret. Years passed, and both girls grew in different worlds, yet strangely bound by fate. Lyanna, raised in the palace, lived amidst luxury, but carried a restlessness she could not name. Though she was called princess, she felt like a bird in a gilded cage, watched constantly, expected to be perfect. Meanwhile, Elara grew among villagers, learning kindness, humility, and resilience. She was often told she had the grace of someone destined for more, but she brushed it aside as fantasy. Neither girl knew the truth of her birth. Yet destiny has a way of unraveling lies, no matter how carefully they are woven. And one fateful day, a chain of events would begin to expose the secret that had shaped their lives. The years of childhood faded quickly, and soon both girls reached their 16th year. In the palace, Lyanna was admired for her beauty, but quietly pitied for her demeanor. She never quite embodied the warmth the people expected of their beloved princess. Her words, though carefully measured, lacked the compassion that King Edric and Queen Celine naturally radiated. She had grown into a princess of elegance, but not of heart, admired more for her gowns and jewels than her spirit. Meanwhile, Elara, living in Marin's modest cottage, bloomed into a young woman of grace and quiet strength. She often helped neighbors with their chores, comforted children with stories, and healed animals with tender hands. Though she had little, her generosity made her beloved by all in her village. Sometimes strangers passing through would marvel at her noble bearing, joking that she must have been misplaced from the palace itself. On the eve of her 16th birthday, Lyanna stood before her mirror, draped in a gown of sapphire silk, her crown gleaming under candlelight. The palace bustled with preparations for the grand ball, where suitors from foreign lands would gather. Yet, despite the glamour, she felt a gnawing emptiness. She had everything, yet nothing. Her parents adored her, but their eyes often carried a strange, distant sorrow, as though something was amiss. That same evening, Elara sat by the hearth of the cottage. Marin handed her a small velvet pouch worn with age. Inside lay the golden bracelet, the one engraved with the royal crest, the one Marin had kept hidden for 16 years. With trembling hands, Marin finally told the truth. She revealed how, on the night of their births, the princess had been stolen and swapped, how fate had thrust Ilara into her care. Ilara's heart pounded as the truth unraveled before her. "You mean I am not who I thought I was?" she whispered, and her emerald eyes wide with shock. "You are more than you know," Marin replied softly. "You are the true princess of Arvandor." Ilara could barely breathe. The thought seemed too wild, too impossible, and yet the bracelet's royal crest burned into her palm like undeniable proof. Her world, once simple and steady, now stood on the edge of collapse. That night, sleep eluded her. She sat by the window, staring at the distant lights of the palace. A storm of emotions swirled within her: fear, wonder, anger, and longing. She had never felt envy toward the princess, but now that she knew the truth, questions consumed her. Why had this happened? Who was behind it? And what should she do now? The ball at the palace loomed large, drawing nobles and strangers from far lands. Whispers reached even Ilara's village that the event would be unlike any other, a night of destiny. Unknowingly, both girls were being drawn toward a moment that would shatter illusions and reveal truths too long buried. The winds of fate had begun to stir. The night of the grand ball arrived. Lanterns lit up the sky, casting golden glows across Arvandor's marble towers. Nobles from distant kingdoms paraded through the gates, their carriages adorned with silks and banners. The palace glittered with splendor, its walls alive with music, laughter, and the scent of roses. Liana stood at the center of it all, her gown shimmering like starlight. Servants whispered in awe at her beauty, yet none noticed the shadow of discontent in her eyes. She longed for freedom, for something real beyond courtly manners and hollow flattery. Her parents smiled proudly as she greeted suitors, but Liana's heart remained untouched. Meanwhile, in the village, Ilara wrestled with her truth. Marin urged her to stay silent, fearing danger, yet Ilara could not ignore the pull inside her. She decided to attend the ball in disguise. Donning a simple cloak, she joined the crowd traveling toward the palace, determined to see with her own eyes the world that had been denied to her. The moment Ilara stepped into the palace courtyard, she felt a strange familiarity, as though her soul recognized the place. The chandeliers sparkled above her like old friends, and the music resonated in her bones. She moved through the throng of guests unnoticed, her emerald eyes wide with wonder. Inside the ballroom, Liana danced gracefully, her every move polished and rehearsed. Yet when her gaze swept across the room, it halted abruptly. She saw Ilara. The resemblance was unmistakable, two young women who looked like reflections in a mirror. The hall seemed to freeze as whispers spread. "Who is that girl? She looks just like the princess." Curiosity burned through Liana, but also fear. She excused herself from her partner and moved closer. Ilara, equally stunned, felt her breath catch as their eyes locked. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a poem, recognition beyond words. Before either could speak, Lady Brienne, now a high-ranking court advisor, spotted Ilara. Panic surged in her veins. She recognized the emerald eyes that had haunted her for years, the true heir to the throne. If Ilara's presence stirred suspicion, Brienne's treachery would unravel. Quickly, she intercepted the two girls. "Who are you?" Brienne demanded of Ilara, her tone sharp. "A guest," Ilara answered calmly, though her heart raced. Brienne's eyes narrowed, but she forced a smile for the onlookers. "The princess must not be disturbed tonight. Guards, escort this visitor out." The guards moved forward, but King Edric intervened. His sharp gaze lingered on Ilara, and for a fleeting moment, hope flickered in his eyes. Something about her stirred memories of the child he had once cradled. "This girl may stay," the king declared, silencing the hall. Brienne's stomach twisted, but she dared not object. That night, Ilara remained in the shadows, observing the courtly world that should have been hers. Liana, unable to shake her curiosity, sent a servant to secretly arrange a meeting. Two lives, long separated, were finally on the brink of collision. The palace gardens, bathed in moonlight, became the secret meeting place. Lyanna waited, her heart pounding in her chest. She had spent her life surrounded by courtiers and flatterers, but never had she encountered someone who mirrored her so completely. Elara approached, her cloak rustling softly. For a moment they simply stared at one another, as though searching for answers written on each other's faces. "You," Lyanna began, her voice trembling, "you look like me. Who are you really?" Elara hesitated, but the bracelet weighed heavily in her pocket. She pulled it out, holding it between them. "My name is Elara. I was raised in the village, but this was given to me when I was a baby. It bears the royal crest." Lyanna's eyes widened. She reached for the bracelet, her fingers trembling. This belongs only to the blood of Arvandor." The truth struck her like a blade. Could it be that she was not the true princess? Anger and fear flared in her chest. "What are you saying? That I am nothing?" "No," Elara replied firmly. "You are someone. But the life you live, it was meant to be mine." The words hung heavy between them. Lyanna turned away, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. All her life, she had struggled to feel like she belonged, and now, here was the reason, because she had been living a lie. Suddenly, footsteps echoed through the garden. Lady Brienne emerged from the shadows, her face pale with fury. "Enough!" she hissed. "You will not destroy everything I've built." "Everything you've built?" Elara asked, her voice sharp. "It was you, wasn't it? You switched us." Brienne's eyes flickered with panic, then hardened. "I did what needed to be done. The kingdom deserves a princess raised in refinement, not a peasant girl from a hut." Lyanna's breath caught. "You mean, all this time, I was never truly theirs?" Brienne reached for Lyanna's hand. "Desperate. You are as much a princess as she is now. Do not let this girl steal what is yours." But Lyanna pulled away. Her heart churned with confusion, but one thing was clear. Brienne had lied to her, to everyone. Guards, alerted by the raised voices, rushed in. Brienne quickly masked her panic. "These girls conspire against the crown," she cried, pointing at Elara. The guards seized Elara, despite her protests. Lyanna's lips parted, as though to defend her, but fear silenced her voice. Elara was dragged away into the dungeons, the bracelet clattering to the ground. Lyanna picked it up, her hands shaking, torn between the truth she had discovered and the life she had always known. That night, the kingdom celebrated the ball's success, unaware that its true princess sat in chains below the palace. And for Lyanna, sleep brought no comfort, only the echo of Elara's words and the unbearable weight of a secret she could no longer ignore. The dungeon was damp and cold, its walls echoing with despair. Elara sat chained, yet her spirit remained unbroken. She thought of Marin, who had sacrificed everything to keep her safe, and of the life stolen from her. Though fear pressed upon her, determination burned brighter. She knew she was more than a prisoner. She was the rightful heir of Arvandor. Above, Lyanna wandered the palace corridors, the bracelet clutched tightly in her hand. She replayed every word Elara had spoken, every flicker of recognition in her father's eyes. Her mind battled between two truths, the life she had known and the reality she could no longer deny. Finally, she sought out her mother, Queen Selene. Entering her chambers, Lyanna hesitated, then asked softly, "Mother, did you ever wonder if I was truly yours?" The queen looked startled, then her gaze softened. "Every day, my heart told me something was missing. You are my daughter in love, but there were moments when I felt as though fate had played a cruel trick." Lyanna's throat tightened. She placed the bracelet in Selene's hands. The queen gasped, tears filling her eyes as she traced the royal crest. This was Elara's. We placed it upon her wrist the night she was born." The truth shattered the queen's composure. For years, she had dismissed her doubts as guilt or imagination. But now, undeniable proof lay before her. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, a cloaked figure approached Elara. To her surprise, It was King Edric himself. He had ordered her imprisonment only to prevent chaos at the ball, but his heart demanded answers. "Child," he said gently, holding a lantern close, "tell me everything." Elara spoke with quiet strength, recounting Marin's confession and the bracelet. She revealed her years in the village, her longing for nothing more than a simple life, until fate forced her into the palace. The king listened intently, his eyes glistening. When she finished, he reached through the bars and clasped her hand. "You carry the spirit of Arvandor more than anyone I have known. If what you say is true, then the throne has been denied its rightful heir for far too long." But before he could act, Lady Brienne intercepted them. Rage filled her as she saw the king's compassion. "Do not be deceived, your majesty. She spins lies to claim power. She seeks to tear this family apart." Edric's gaze hardened. "The only one tearing this family apart is you, Brienne. You will answer for this." Brienne paled, realizing her grip on the court was slipping. She fled into the night, vowing to silence Elara before the truth could spread further. The king ordered Elara's release, but word of the scandal could not remain hidden forever. The court buzzed with whispers, and the people grew restless. 2 girls, 2 possible princesses. Who was the rightful heir? The kingdom itself seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the reckoning that was sure to come. Dawn broke over Arvandor, casting golden light upon a kingdom divided. Rumors spread like wildfire. The true princess had returned. In the markets, villagers argued heatedly. Some swore loyalty to the girl who had lived among them with kindness, Elara. Others defended Lyanna, who had worn the crown all her life. Inside the palace, tension mounted. King Edric and Queen Selene convened the council. Elara, now free, stood beside them, her presence undeniable. Lyanna sat opposite, pale and trembling, her identity unraveling before the world. "This cannot continue," Selene declared. "The kingdom deserves the truth." The council agreed that a trial of legitimacy must be held, not of guilt, but of destiny. A sacred tradition, older than memory, dictated that when heirs were disputed, the gods themselves would decide through the trial of the crown, a series of challenges testing wisdom, courage, and heart. Both girls were to face the trial. The one who prevailed would be named the true Princess of Arvandor. Lyanna's heart pounded with dread. All her life she had relied on polish and refinement, but never had she been tested in spirit. Elara, though fearful, felt a strange calm. She had faced hardship before, poverty, struggle, sacrifice. Perhaps this was what she had been prepared for all along. The first trial took place in the Hall of Mirrors. Each girl was led into a vast chamber of glass, where illusions twisted reality. Voices whispered, showing their deepest fears. Lyanna saw herself cast aside, forgotten, her crown shattered. Desperate, she reached for the reflections, but they only multiplied her despair. Elara too trembled as she saw Marin fading from her side, leaving her utterly alone. But she steadied herself, whispering, "I am enough." The mirrors stilled, revealing her reflection whole and unbroken. The second trial was of courage. In the palace courtyard, a great beast conjured by ancient magic appeared, a lion with eyes of fire. Lyanna froze, fear rooting her to the ground. Elara, though terrified, stepped forward. She did not raise a sword, but knelt, meeting the creature's gaze. "You are not my enemy," she said. The beast bowed its head, vanishing into smoke. The crowd gasped in awe. The final trial was of heart. Each girl was asked, "If crowned, what would you give your kingdom?" Lyanna's voice quivered. "I would give them beauty, grace, and strength." Elara's voice was steady. "I would give them myself, my love, my service, my life if needed, for a crown is not worn upon the head, but upon the soul." The council whispered among themselves. The choice was clear. Yet before the verdict could be declared, Lady Brienne stormed into the chamber, her eyes wild. "This is a mockery," she shouted. In her hand gleamed a dagger. She lunged toward Elara, determined to silence her once and for all. But Lyanna, in a moment of clarity, stepped forward. She threw herself between Elara and the blade. The The dagger pierced her side, and she fell to the ground, blood staining her gown. The hall erupted in chaos. The hall froze as Lyanna collapsed, her gown a sea of crimson. Gasps and cries echoed against the marble walls. Ilara rushed to her side, catching her before she struck the floor. "Why?" Ilara whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. Lyanna's lips curved into a faint, pained smile. "Because I finally understand. This crown was never truly mine, but you are what the kingdom needs. I could not let her take you from them." King Edric and Queen Selene knelt beside them, their eyes brimming with grief. Selene pressed her hands over Lyanna's wound, desperately calling for healers. "You are still our daughter," she sobbed. "No matter your birth, you are ours in love." Lyanna's breath grew shallow. She clutched Ilara's hand weakly. "Promise me. Promise you will rule with the kindness you showed me tonight." Ilara's tears fell onto her sister's hand. "I promise." The healers arrived, carrying Lyanna away, though her survival remained uncertain. Brienne, restrained by guards, shrieked curses as she was dragged to the dungeons. Her web of lies had finally unraveled. The council reconvened, their decision unanimous. Ilara had proven herself through the trials and through her heart. She was crowned Princess of Arvandor, the golden circlet placed gently upon her brow. The people erupted in cheers, their voices rising like thunder across the land. For the first time, the kingdom felt whole again. Yet Ilara did not celebrate in triumph. Her gaze lingered toward the chamber where Lyanna lay recovering. For though she was not of royal blood, Lyanna had shown the bravery and sacrifice of a true princess. Days passed, and news spread that Lyanna had survived her wound, though weakened. When she awoke, Ilara was the first at her side. "You should hate me," Lyanna murmured, "for living the life that was yours." Ilara shook her head. "I do not hate you. You lived it because—" "So you had no choice, and you gave it up when you did have one. That makes you my sister, not my enemy." Tears slipped down Lyanna's cheeks, but for the first time, they were tears of release. Together, they walked into the palace garden side by side, not as rivals, but as sisters bound by fate. The people came to love them both. Ilara, the rightful heir who ruled with compassion, and Lyanna, the fostered princess who became her greatest ally. Years later, their story would be told across kingdoms, not as a tale of betrayal, but as a legend of two girls whose lives were intertwined by destiny, whose choices shaped the fate of Arvandor. And though crowns may rest on only one head, the kingdom knew it had been blessed with not one, but two princesses, each carrying the light of its future. The winds of fate that once threatened to tear them apart now carried them forward, stronger together. And so the swapped princesses found their true places, not in rivalry, but in unity, their bond unbreakable, their story eternal.